Does giving access credentials to individuals who need to enter your building make your property less secure? We're going to get into it right after this.
Hey, welcome back to the Security Bros. Ken, James, welcome. So here's the deal. What are you trying to say?
What I'm trying to say, actually, I have a personal story to share. My in-laws own a condo in a condo building. And recently, the entire building had their access control and intercom and camera system upgraded. Very cool, right? So when the new system went live, the residents were frustrated because there was a discrepancy of what the system could do and what the security company was allowing them to do with the system. First off, they were told that each unit could only receive 2 key fobs.
Holy shit. Hang on.
Take a moment for yourself. Get your affairs in order.
I just got to calm down. You told me only 2 key fobs. I just sound like blew my damn mind. Okay.
Blew your damn mind, right? Well, first, they were told by the security company that each unit could only receive 2 key fobs. And when they asked why they could only have 2 key fobs and no more, the security company told them that it was a security risk to give out any more than that to each unit.
Okay.
Even if they were assigned to individual people in the unit, say 3 people living in it, no, you can only have 2 fobs. Secondly, they had an intercom system, a video intercom at the front of the building, and it has the ability to create virtual keys. A virtual key is typically a PIN code that can be programmed by the unit owner of a building, and you can give that PIN code to friends or family to come in and gain access to the building. It's also a great way to allow, say, a dog walker to gain access and come walk your dog.
Okay, so in other words, if you're a resident in an apartment building or a condo, each resident has a mobile app.
Mm-hmm.
When a visitor comes to the building, they use that cloud-based intercom to place a call between the front door, where the intercom is, in that mobile app.
Yes.
They receive the call in that mobile app. But if they wanted to, in the same mobile app, they could create this virtual key, this PIN code that they can assign to the dog walker, to the contractor, to whoever, so that they can then enter without making that call to them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. You can set them for a specific length of time. If it's a one-time use thing, this is all done from the app, right? So you can set it so maybe the code only works once. Maybe it only works for a day. Typically, you can set them for like up to a year. If for whatever reason that code is compromised, typically the management company or the user who created the code can delete that code from the system. No more security risk, and you're all good. Back to the story. That security company managing the building security told them that they could not be the virtual keys could not be programmed for any longer than 1 day. So basically, if you had somebody coming back on a repetitive basis, you would have to create a code every single day for that person, which at that point, you're really not even going to do it because it's just too tedious, too much effort. And again, the security company stated that it would be a security risk if a code was allowed to be used for more than 1 day. Residents were rightfully frustrated with this, and it resulted in quite a spicy board meeting. In our line of work, we deal with these kinds of things, and I think that we tend to fall on the side of giving residents of a building a bit more freedom. You're managing the system and the access of the system, and people are allowed to create codes and user access for their friends and family. But if properly managed, you know who has the code, you know who has the key fob, and so on. And if there is ever an issue, it's pretty easy to go in and remove the access for that key fob or that virtual key code. So that kind of got me thinking, how do you balance security with usability? I think this kind of falls into kind of 2 categories. It depends on the type of building you have. A store or an office is going to require tighter security than, say, a residential apartment or a condo building. Think commercial versus residential.
To me, it makes a big difference who is the client. If you're dealing with a condo building, the client will be actually several clients, because it's going to be, all of the owners of each of those condos should have something of a say. And plus, you have the condo board, but everybody has a bit of a say in how things are going to be run in that building. And so, to me, if they want more flexibility, if they want to have more convenience, if they want to have more convenience over security, that's on them. Right. That's not for me to decide. That's for the client, especially if they purchase the system.
Yeah.
This is their system. It's not our system. It's this other security company. It's not their system. It's the client system. It's your job as the security company to maybe educate the client. I mean, that's part of what they're paying for, is for you to let them know, okay, yeah, here's the features. You may want to beware if you take them too far, they can result in, a lack of security or very specific issues. Like if you make these codes and you say, just make the code indefinite, and you've given out too many, a lot of people can have that code. And here's issues we've had with that in the past.
We've had problems with that, though, where somebody has created a code and then given it to everybody. So you don't know.
That's a very recent issue.
Yeah. You don't have any idea. And then it actually caused problems in the facility. And there was no way to know who was using the code. I would never recommend that. I would always recommend, if you're going to assign a code, know who the code is going to, know who the fob is going to.
Yeah, there should be some accountability for that code, preferably. But, in a case like that, where we were talking about an apartment building, okay, in that case, the actual residents of each unit aren't really going to be the ones to dictate how much flexibility the system has, or what features do they want to take advantage of. That would then either be like the owner of the building, or maybe even the property management,
right?
Who's running the facility. So it's not about the residents. The residents aren't making that call. It might be the property management or the owner. Sometimes they're literally the same company. It's really, those things are up to the client. They're the ones that made the decision on what to purchase, and they should be the ones to make the decision on whether or not they want to utilize those features or not. Should not be the security vendor saying, no, you can only have 2 key fobs, unless literally the system only allows 2 key fobs per unit. I mean, if that's the situation, fine, but if it's them just saying, no, we can't allow you to do something we think is not in your best interest, well, it's not their call.
Right. That's a great point. I think a bit of responsibility lies on that security company, because they're trying to dictate what the customer can do with their system, which would rightfully frustrate the majority of the folks in that building. Access controls, intercoms, they work together, right? And my viewpoint on this is that they are there to prevent unwanted people from easily gaining access, but they shouldn't be so complicated or restricted that it makes the residents of a building have a hard time using it. The idea is prevent people from just walking in, right? You need access. You want to know who's coming in, in and out of your building. So the access control allows you to do that. But if you make it too difficult to use, everyone's just going to be frustrated. And that's a bad recipe, or a recipe for a bad time. Oftentimes, though, residents will do things like hold the door for somebody, simply because they're just trying to be a good person. I mean, we've all done it. I'm sure you've done it, right? You go into a building, you scan your fob, you hold the door, someone's right behind you, and you don't just want to let it slam in their face, right? So sometimes unwanted people gain access that way. It happens more frequently than not, or than you might think.
Yeah, I was looking at a report the other day. We call it tailgating. Someone tailgated this young girl I actually sent it to you.
Yeah.
They tailgated her into her apartment.
Yeah.
And they ended up, what did they do? They slit her throat?
I think the article you sent me, they assaulted her, and
they definitely killed her.
Killed her, and I think they raped her.
Yeah, they did some stuff.
It's really sad.
That's why, it's it does pay off to be a little bit vigilant, at least be a little aware, because a lot of times nowadays, people are walking around with their their headphones.
Yeah.
And they're just, I get it. They want to tune out the world. I was doing a site visit recently, and the apartment manager, someone gained access to the building that wasn't supposed to be there. And when she checked the footage, it was one of the ladies had like walked into the, building, and this person was just like following her. She did not even see the guy because she was wearing the headphones, but she didn't even know. You could tell she didn't even realize that was following her from the street into the building.
A mugger thought Elise Rosales was a vulnerable target when she came home one night to her apartment in Harlem.
I heard the buzzer go off, and someone in my apartment building actually let him into the building.
He followed her for a moment and then attacked.
The entire time, I just remember, mostly I was screaming, help.
Whenever I'm walking, not even just who's following, but just like traffic and stuff, right? I see so many people in the cities with headphones on or, AirPods in or whatever, and they're just going about, and that's great. They're in their own little world. But, imagine car comes off with it. You can't hear a car coming if it's like going to hit you or somebody following you or,
Also in a city, when people get mugged, they typically, those people, they look for like the weakest subject, right? Like lions, picking out that weak gazelle, bison, whatever.
Right.
And so they look for people that are walking, in a sort of a meandering path because they're clearly not paying much attention, right? People that aren't walking with purpose, direct, any direction. People that are
don't seem aware of their surroundings.
Yeah, they just like those are perfect marks. Yep. Or I shouldn't say perfect, but they're of all the marks, those are going to be the best ones.
Right.
Also attractive, people who look like they won't fight back. 31% checked that box. 23% said they wanted people who looked lost or drunk. Bottom line, as one mugger wrote, someone you think you can overpower.
When I would lay in the alley and watch people walk by and see if, they were alone. You can call it lurking, surveillance, or stalking, you can call it. That's basically what the word is, stalking.
And watch for
weaknesses.
Something I will do, because I live in a building with a lot of units, I don't know who all the neighbors are. If someone's walking in right behind me, I'm not going to turn around and say like, stop, who goes there, and do the Grand Inquisition.
Yeah. Halt.
Right. I'm not going to get involved in that. I go in if they seem to be trying to come in with me. Usually I will allow them to go ahead of me. They can't go anywhere once they get into the lobby. That's one of the benefits. If you have your building set up right, they still need a key fob to get into the elevator or the stairwell. And so if like I pause and I just like let them go ahead, they're not going to be getting anywhere anyway. And then they're going to stick out like a sore thumb if they're like standing there like an idiot. They can't get out and they're kind of waiting for the elevator.
Yeah.
And we have a 24/7 like concierge security person there.
That's a really great segue actually, because my next piece of advice was to put access control key fobs on your elevators and the first floor stairwell doors. Actually, even better, all your stairwell doors. So if somebody can get into a stairwell, they can't hop between floors in the building without a approved badge to get to that floor. This will prevent a lot of problems where somebody may get into the lobby, like you mentioned, but then they really can't get anywhere else if you have done this properly. I've had this happen, kind of back to your point of being followed into a building, where somebody came in, I scanned, they had hit a floor, I scanned to get to my floor, which was a different floor. And then they proceeded to get out on the floor that I gotten out on instead of the floor that they had selected. So they had selected the 6th floor of the building, which was anyone could go to it. I was going to the 5th floor, which you needed a key fob to get onto. Well, then they proceeded to follow me onto the 5th floor and just go hang out in the lobby. They probably shouldn't have been on the 5th floor.
That is a issue that some, including the building I live in, has had. If you have a lot of residents, believe it or not, there's always going to be some that will end up bringing home visitors that are nuts out of their mind, okay? And they will end up going and just like vandalizing the building. They get into a fight, and then to like get back, I guess, at the person, I've watched the video footage. It could be men, it could be women, whoever. They leave and then they go around the building vandalizing it, breaking things, breaking windows, scratching marks into the elevator doors, just going floor by floor, doing some damage. And the problem is, if let's say you're on the 8th floor, you bring back this person, they go nuts, they leave, if they go into the elevator, sometimes the elevators will have key fob access, And so the only floor they can get to is
That's
the,
the best one.
is the ground floor, usually the first floor where they can exit.
Right.
But they don't want to do that. They want to go to other floors.
Right.
So they don't
Also
use the
mayhem.
elevator. So they use a stairwell, because a lot of times in stairwells, those are just left wide open. So if you're on, say, floor 8, you can then drop down to floor 7, 6, 5, 4 individually, because you can just, anybody can get into the stairwell for free egress and go down to the first floor.
Right.
That you can't change that, but that's not really an issue. But what you can do is make it so to get back into a level, like anyone can exit, but to get back into each floor from the stairwell into the floor, you could have that key fob access. So these people can't do that. It's not overkill, because I've seen it so many times. I live in a luxury building myself, very, very nice building. And even those people sometimes make these mistakes of bringing home crazy dates or whoever, and those people end up going through the building and like spray painting stuff and causing all kinds of havoc. It's not super often in my building, but even in my building, I'm saying it happens. And then you go into any like other kind of building, it happens a lot. And so having key fob access and locking it down, it really doesn't slow you down much as a resident. If you have that key fob, it's very easy to just buzz through all these doors very fast, not inconvenient, but it does make it like almost impossible for, a crazy person to just meander throughout the whole building.
And it's surprising how many multi-tenant buildings, like apartments or condos, do not bother putting the key fob access in the stairwells or the elevator. And then you have these problems where people get in and run between floors, causing a bunch of problems.
What we typically have is someone's building a building. And I actually had a meeting recently with somebody on a construction site, and they wanted to discuss not having the same issues like this building we were dealing with recently. They wanted to make sure they weren't going to have those issues at the new building.
Right.
And so I said, that's fantastic. And so they said, well, what would you suggest? And I said, well, look, how we design security somewhat depends on who I'm dealing with, right? If I'm dealing with a developer, a lot of times developers only want to put in like the most minimal security in a building so that they can sell it, because the more money they spend on the building, the less money they make when they rent it out or sell the units or sell the building or whatever. So they want to get that building built for as cheap as possible. You're not going to talk them into being like, oh, this is going to make the building so much more secure. A lot of times they don't really care. Their whole point is to make money. Right? Fair enough. Your building, your decision. So I understand. Once I can think from their perspective, I want to give them, bang for their buck, make it secure enough, but don't go overkill as they might think. Okay, fair enough. If I'm dealing with, people who are going to be more involved with the building, where this, like ongoing, might even be the developer. Sometimes developers also manage their own building. It's like, trust me, you will save yourself so much hassle in the future if you spend a little bit of money now for things like we just mentioned. Key fob in the elevator and the key fobs on the stairwells. At least key fob from the first floor into the stairwell. This way, if someone tailgates into the lobby, they can't then go into the stairwell and then just zoom throughout the whole building. They could still, if they were already like invited up, they could still like drop down to every floor. But this client, they wanted to stop that very issue. And then they were like, well, you know what? This area isn't that bad. You can kind of look around. It seems like the people are kind of upscale. And I'm like, it doesn't matter the area.
No.
There's plenty of really nice areas with really nice people in upscale areas, which, by the way, it wasn't an upscale area. It was not. So when he was like, look around, I looked around and I was like, what are you talking about? This place looks like trash. Whatever. Yeah. So, anyway, so I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Because he was like, I don't think we need to go overkill. I think we're fine. And I'm like, so in other words, what you want is to end up with the same problems you had at the last place, and we're just going to repeat that here. Got it.
This is a fantastic little bit of a segue to something we talked about in another video, and that is, if you don't have the money for it right now, get the cable there. Because maybe you think, oh, I don't need it. But trust me, man, you will need it. At some point, you'll find out, oh, people are getting in. And this happens all the time. People think that they don't need X, Y, Z, cameras in certain spots, access control to certain floors or doors. And without fail, they always come back and say, I need it. And the problem is, if you do it after the fact, after the building has been built, it's going to cost a bunch more. because it's a whole lot harder to get everything you need to that door or that area, if you're doing cameras.
Well, and James has been telling me this for a while. Ken, when you're having meetings with these clients, sell them on just pulling the cable, which, by the way, I have been doing. And even on this like recent, meeting I had yesterday, I made that very clear. Why don't we just pull a cable to these various locations that you might want it in the future? But nah, like definitely, it was almost like they were afraid that by sort of doing it, it would almost like make it necessary. Like you could see that the thought of pulling the cable, like they really didn't want it.
I might have to actually do the access control if I put the cable there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. So probably issues in the future, but hey, whatever. Once again, no problem, because this is the client's decision. And if they want to do something that ultimately is not in their best interest, so long as they understand from my point of view, this is what I think about that. It's their building, it's their life, it's their money, it's all of that. And when they run into issues in the future and they want us to go and hook that up, well, we're around for that too. So
either way, we got you covered.
Yeah, it's not up to me to make that decision. It's just up to me to provide the consult and the information.
Yep.
And what they want to do with that, that's on them. I try to explain it in a very simple, clear, understandable way so that they can make the right decision. Yeah, I don't really judge on that. And even if they do it and then they run into issues, look, it's hit or miss. Maybe they don't end up running into issues and then they saved a lot of money. But, there are certain things we've found that are extremely helpful, like key fob access in stairwells.
100%. Want to talk about businesses, places of business.
Okay.
It's a little bit different. In a place of business, you don't really want the people that you've given credentials to have free reign. You definitely don't want them giving access to their friends and family and their dog walker to your business. So it's a whole different kind of a ball game, right? You want to give the people access to enter that you trust, but you want it a lot more locked down. I feel like this kind of goes without saying, but as with any building, your credentials should be properly managed. You need to make sure you know who has them and which fob is assigned to which person. Limit who has access to certain areas, maybe a safe or stock room where you keep certain special supplies. Kind of a little bit the opposite of what you would do in a residential building. You kind of want your residents with correct credentials to have free reign in the building, but in a business, you kind of want to lock it down just a bit more.
Well, whatever happened with the store? Did they get rid of the security company?
So how they did this was you get 2 fobs and 1 little remote clicker for the automatic gate to the parking lot, which also serves as a key fob. But they're still holding their foot down that no one can have more than the 2 key fobs and a clicker, which acts as a key fob. And apparently the board is working to try to change that.
Yeah, that one's blowing my mind.
It's blowing my mind.
There's got to be more to that, because I don't know any security company that really cares that much.
Right.
Well, plus more key fobs means more key fob sales.
That's exactly what I said. Apparently, they're charging per key fob per month. So it's like a subscription type of deal per key fob.
Oh.
But what I didn't understand, if I live in, unit 101 of this building, if I wanted to buy 10 key fobs and pay whatever the subscription amount is for this key fob, wouldn't the security company want more revenue from me? I mean, it seems like a weird way to charge for key fobs.
Well, either way,
regardless of that,
a subscription or an outright payment,
or you're making more money
to sell the key fob.
Right. You're good.
Unless they want more key fobs without paying more money.
People were saying that they were willing to pay for more key fobs, and they were saying, well, this is a security risk. And I was like, it's not, though.
It's something seems up with that, because who says no to? I don't know any security company, or any company for that matter, that wants to say no to sales.
I've never heard money. Yeah, this was a first, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. And it sparked such a thing in my head. I was like, I want to talk about this because I've never heard of it either.
Well, look.
Hey.
If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up so we know, and share it so your friends know.
Bye.
I'm talking like this to the user, and I'm talking like this
Right.
to you, and
That's what I never understand. If I just shoot like a video, just I'm out there carefree, just grab it and video something really quick. It's great, right? But I feel like every time we sit down and try to do this, it'll be like, oh, somebody's just a little bit out of focus or
I'm in
something.
focus. He's
Yeah,
out of
he's not out of
focus.
focus. I
Always
moved
is.
in, don't move an inch because you're gonna be out of focus. And it's like, why?
we have the new lighting there. So I'm looking at it. It's nice. It's big. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to just throw a topper on for some heat. I need some more hot water in my tea.
Okay.
And then I will be back. Think about what you want to say.
Does giving access credentials to folks who need access to your building, we're gonna do this again. Does giving access credentials, I'm gonna try that again. Does giving access credentials to thank you. I'm glad you heard it too. Does giving access credentials to individuals, thank you. I'll be here all night doing the same line. It's great. We're just going to stop there. That's going to be a cut right there in the video. It's going to be a cut. Times. You can feel free to jump in with any ideas you have too. You know, it always makes the conversation more. If like you have something that pops in your head, feel free to like jump in with it and then we can ping pong.
This is a James episode, everybody. He's running this one.
For sure, for sure. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate that.
So if we both put our elbows out,
We're probably going to be out of the screen.
okay, let me
yeah.
see where we end up being. I'm gonna leave my chair right where it is. Okay.
Yeah. I'm doing.
Yeah, because every time we
Who
sit
knew this
down,
was such a hassle, you know? You're doing tea?
Doing-
With some milk?
doing some tea with some milk.
Very nice.
If you enjoyed this episode, you better like it so we know.
Put some respect on my name.
I'm talking to the viewer, talking to you, I'm looking at whoever is busting up in our video.
I will say my space was better than your space, which is better than the Facebook space. However, does giving access credentials to individuals who need access to your building mean that you've used the word access too many times? Let's go.